You wait. Just you wait. Don't give me props. Oh.
Props it is. Maryland Arts fam, joining the fun with us. Clearly, we're here chilling. We want to chill with you. Today, we're going to talk about the art of asking for what you want. Now, this actually started from a previous conversation that we had, and there was something in terms of being able to have a safe space, to take space, safe space for space. That was it. That's like going to be a shirt. I love that. But somewhere in there, we also started to talk about being able to just ask your spouse for what it is you want. So, babe, let's put this together. I want you to help me because there's a formula. There's a way to do it. I know we can.
There's no formula.
There's no formula.
No.
X plus 5 to the. You can't just if your voice hits a certain frequency, it automatically makes the person sing. That's not
If
it.
you're married to a human being,
20,
if you're a human
Yeah,
being,
yeah.
married to a human being.
This is a fair point. This is a fair point. All things do need to be considered. So there's no perfect way to do it, huh? Well, let's see how we can help you craft what can be done. Babe, so if you needed to ask me for something, how would you approach me?
Oh, well,
Uh-oh, she just said I'm unapproachable, yo. Cut. That's play.
someone once told me that the way that I ask for things makes people excited to
Yes.
give them to me.
This is very true. It works. After 9+ years of marriage, I can say that's absolutely right.
Let's see if I can reverse engineer that. I don't think I can. But I can say, so I'm not going to answer your question because I'm not sure how to answer it yet.
Okay.
I want to start somewhere else.
Ooh.
Can we start with how to know what you need to ask for?
Let's go there. Let's go all the way there then. How do we know, Mrs. Quay?
Yeah, because I think the asking gets lost in the, I don't even know what I'm asking for. Right?
Let's start there. You're right.
And so let's start with abundance. You can have anything, right? And then work backwards.
Okay.
From there to what's reasonable, right? And you know your spouse, you know what you have reasonable access to, what you have predictable access to, okay? And so somewhere between the like abundance, what you have, and what your spouse is like is what we're gonna ask for, okay?
I see. This sounds like a formula to me. This sounds brilliant. Keep going.
All of those are variables. All of them. But so it's got to start with what you need. And a lot of us are out of touch with our needs. A lot of us did not have our needs met when we were reliant on other people to meet them. AKA if you were a kid and you either asked for things and were violently denied them, or if you learned very quickly that you couldn't ask for anything because it wasn't going to be outright denied, but you weren't going to get it either, which is almost worse. It's just like it didn't even matter that you asked. All of that stuff is what jumps out to the party when you go to ask your husband or your wife or your spouse for anything that you need in the moment. All of a sudden you're back in, I was fine when I wanted the Barbie and instead I got a spanking because like, oh my gosh. So what do you need? Figuring that out, making sure that you have enough stillness, enough clarity of mind and thought to even begin to process what you might need is a great first step. And if you don't have that, then that is what you need. Like, I can't think straight. I need 10 minutes. Like, untouched, unbothered. And it's fair to ask for that. But it's got to start with what you need. And that might be a social need that you need to connect with somebody outside of your kids and the person that you see all the time. It might be a spiritual need or a physical need. Sleep and food and water and showers are big ones. If those haven't all been covered, you probably need one. Walking through what that looks like for yourself is the starting point. What did I miss in terms of how you figure out you always say in terms of, I'm not going to copy you. I love you. Well, what did I miss?
I'm rubbing off on you after all these years. Look at it.
I refuse. What did I miss? Insert blank. With identifying needs.
Okay.
How else can you identify needs?
You know what? I don't want to say miss. I just wanted to add on to, because I think what you gave was very, very full and complete. I just wanted to add, you are worth your needs being met. This is a critical truth we all need to own, because I believe this is why a lot of people don't ask. Is if we're really honest with ourselves, we struggle at times with feeling that we are worthy of our needs being met. And so before you ask, start there, because you don't want to delegitimize yourself before you open your mouth. And just know that season in, season out, whatever your needs are, you are worth them being met. So I had to add that, because everything you were saying, I was like, yes, yes, yes. And on top of that, once you've taken into account all the things you said, it's then speaking with that knowledge, with that fullness. And I'll also say, and if you don't feel that way, that is your need. Is figuring out why it is you don't feel you are worthy of your needs being met. That becomes your new immediate need. That's the ask that you have to have of yourself, is to say, why don't I feel as if I'm worthy of my needs being met? And I think that will uncover a lot too.
That's huge. I had a Selah moment on that. I would add to that that your needs matter. There's no hierarchy or value assignment around certain needs being more important than, or more critical or prioritized above. If it's 15 minutes of solitude or 15 minutes of binge TV, well, they're binging it in 15 minutes, but okay. That's your need. And so making sure that as long as it's healthy, we're not going to pretend certain kinds of spirits and mind-altering substances or needs, okay? They are not. I don't care if they're for your glaucoma. They are not needs, okay? Aside from that, they matter. Because that was what, in 1990, it was glaucoma.
That was a need. A lot of people who didn't have it claimed it and said it was a need. This is a fair
17
point.
years old.
Fair point.
Okay. Your needs matter. And a lot of, I just want us to resist the urge, because you described it so well, of delegitimizing your need. Another way that happens is thinking that what you're asking for is not important, or that it doesn't matter. And so I wanted to encourage folks to remember that all of what you think you need matters. That's what qualifies it, is that you need it. You get to define it. We have a couple of really adorable and now challenging tactics we used with our kids to get them really comfortable asking for anything at any time.
And they were very comfortable.
And now we're paying for it.
Yes.
But it'd be so specific. Will you come snuggle with me and hold my hand while we watch this TV show? Oops, no, I changed my mind, and it's okay to change my mind. That'll teach someone it is okay to change your mind. You might need something, and it's okay to settle in the way that you think it needs to be met, and realize that ain't it, and change your mind. So we've got these kiddos that we're coaching, and one of the ways we do that is we tell our daughter, if she asks for something reasonable, whenever we can, we tell her whatever my baby wants, just so that she feels like, oh, it's easy to ask for things, and I get whatever I want when I ask. She's real comfortable asking for things now. And the same with our son. We encourage them to, do you need attention? Are we paying enough attention to you? Do you want us to keep you company? Do you want me to sit here silently with you? There are all these needs that we have that are, I guess I just want to highlight that the needs don't have to be things. It doesn't have to be a specific action or something outside of you. You may need connection in a way that's just someone's physical presence. And that can be hard to ask for if you weren't accustomed to receiving that. You might want someone to just, cuddle you or hold your hand. All those things are okay for you to ask for. So digging into more what your needs are.
I just wanted to add something because of the way you described how, we have worked with Sam and with Naomi, like, be specific. Like, about what it is you need. Don't be afraid to ask specifically for what you need. A lot of times when we approach our spouse, and especially if it's a very critical need, we think we have a better chance of approval, of having our request approved if we're general. It's almost like if I'm general and it's rejected, then it was just the general thing rejected, but not the specific thing, so I don't feel as bad. And it's like, no, the more specific you are, the more likely you are to have that need met. So be specific. And if you haven't taken the time, at least take the time to figure out exactly what it is. It's one thing to say, I need to sit here on the couch and hold your hand. It's another thing for me to say, I need to be at peace. Like that can come from any number of avenues. And so when you're asking your spouse for something like this, you want to be as specific as possible because I think it helps. Also, it gives information to your spouse like, oh, wow, that specific thing meets a need of yours? Well, now I can, in my mind, I can start to use my imagination to create space for that thing in our marriage on a regular basis. And if we really get wow, we can start creating space for that thing to be met. You might not even have to ask. It might already be met before you open your mouth. But that comes from being specific with what that need is.
And it's, as you were describing that, I realized like this isn't, I don't want to, so this is not an occasional thing. This isn't like once a day or once a week or every blue moon. I have a major need and I've sat with myself and I've identified all of these things. This should be comfortable enough for you and habitual enough that it's constant. Like in everyday conversation, think of how much easier it would be if when your spouse came to you to talk, they'd say, hey, I need about this much of your time and it's going to get real deep. So do you have the emotional bandwidth? Because I'm going to need you to just listen and not actually give me any advice. I don't want any advice. I just need a listening ear for about an hour. You got me? Like that works. When they come to you and you got a wrench in one hand and a hot dog in the other and a baby on your back, and they just start the emotional vomit, you guys are going to be there for another 3 hours. Unhappy because someone, never mind how you ended up in that scenario with the wrench and the hot dog and the baby, but
it could happen.
Stranger things.
Yes.
But starting out with what you need, it can be that every day, that that regular, like constant part of your interaction, because we're not mind readers, and it's much less stressful when you're not trying to figure out what the person you're with is looking for.
Okay. Here's another I own it moment. A lot of these as we do these more often. This mind reader thing, oh, your boy was the worst. In that,
Worst at mind read. Oh, go ahead.
I used to believe she should be able to read my mind. Like, I don't understand. We've been together a long time. I think I'm pretty clear. We know each other, and we're married.
Your mind palace is huge.
And actually, that's not the point. Never mind that my mind palace is literally too big for two people to be able. No, it's not the point.
And ever changing.
Yes, changing and evolving, not the point. Okay, you're perfect. You should know. Just because they are your spouse and you are one flesh does not mean you are of one mind. We cannot be expected to be mind readers, which is why just being able to ask is so important, because it eliminates this urge or temptation to believe one or both of you should be mind readers. Like, no, you say what you need. That is the healthiest form of asking. That's the healthiest form of marriages. You say what you need. Will that need always be met? Maybe. Yes. No. But we want to establish a space where it is constantly and consistently safe for it to be said.
Yeah. Just as you were speaking, I got this just clarity about how many folks are in that painful place in a marriage where you're scared to ask because you've gotten the wrong answer so many times.
Yeah, I'll jump in on there. You want that?
And so there's two things. One is I have a rule. It's the 3-time rule. Okay, the first time doesn't count. It just happened. Okay. The second time you take note of something if it happens second time. The third time it's a pattern, and you get to decide whether you want to address it. Depends on what the thing is and how egregious it is. You may just let it lie until the fourth time, or it may be serious enough that you go address it. I say that to say we all carry our, hopefully, whole hearts into marriage. And when you ask for something, and part of you is that, little kid that asked for something and it wasn't met, know that that's going to show up the very first time your spouse doesn't give you the answer you want to hear. And I guarantee you it'll happen at least once in the lifetime of your marriage. Just because you have all of those triggered feelings does not mean that should all be assigned to that first time. Now, if you get into the second, third, maybe fourth, fifth, if it becomes a pattern, then the challenge is you got to figure out how to address it with them. Hey, I noticed every time I ask for this thing, this is the fourth or fifth time now that you've said no, and it really hurts my feelings, and etc. And so you've got to be willing to address how it makes you feel to actually respond to it. But I know there are things that are unasked because they've been answered and it was painful. The answer that you got back was painful. And I just have to encourage folks to ask again. If it's a need and it's not being met and it's reasonable, it's healthy, it's safe, because you got to ask again.
And the flip side of that I want to offer too is if you find that you are the spouse that has to receive, you're on the receiving end of the ask and you're the one who cannot do the thing, it is mission critical that you reinforce that the request not being, just because you said no to the ask doesn't mean you're rejecting the person. Like, that's something that in that moment has to be made you have to reinforce it and be very, very clear. Because if it is a need, especially if you're with someone who has a lot of trouble asking for something, that no is not to the, they're not going to receive that no as a no to the thing. It's almost like you said no to them. And so the next step to that, you know, is to find the very loving and patient way to say, this, I can't honor this, but I still honor you. And so that next step has to be taken. Otherwise, if you become a person that cannot be asked things because the way that you say no does so much damage, you render the ask obsolete. And so now you're in a position where unfulfilled needs start to fill up your day to day. And that's just that's a downhill slope.
Yeah, that was a jaw dropper, because once you can't be asked, that means everything has to be done without your permission or input. And I'm not saying it's authorized. I'm saying that it's like part of what we have to navigate in a marriage is figuring out how to work together. This is not an employee-employer relationship or an LLC where all the partners have divisible shares and you can, you know, terminate the contract and move on.
Right.
This is, regardless of the circumstances surrounding the entrance to the marriage, your physical being, body, soul, mind, heart are on the line here. And it is not as simple as, you know, just withdrawing or exiting. There's a cost for that. And so figuring this stuff out has to take both sides, being really intentional about not only what do I need, how do I ask, but also what you were describing, to show folks what that looks like. And you put it really well in saying like that you're not rejecting the person and that you can't honor the request, but you honor the person. It may look like, as you call it, no and like maybe they're saying, hey, can you give me a hug? I need to feel comforted right now. And maybe you just finished washing the dog. And so you say, no, and I'm going to wash my hands and then, or can I just quickly wrap up this thing and then, or it's some acknowledgement. They call it leaning in, because it's a bid for attention. At the core of the ask is a person asking to be seen and heard and known. And then it's less about the specific thing that's being requested and more about each spouse's capacity in that moment to see and hear and recognize each other and know each other. And so if that's what it's about, okay, well, maybe what you're asking is not as important as eye contact and, you know, acknowledging what was said, responding in a way that demonstrates consideration and care and thoughtfulness. And then it doesn't matter if it's a yes, no, maybe so, you know, a lot of the core needs are met just in the way that you acknowledge your spouse. So that's a huge part of it too.
Oh man, it's wild because, you know, we started this as, you know, how to ask, but it sounds it sounds like how to ask is not just a one person job. Like in terms of for a marriage, the ask is, I want to make sure I say this right. Asking requires that the environment has been set that allows a person to ask. And so that is a two-person job. And so it is, are we consistently honoring each other's needs enough so that the space is safe enough for either of us to ask? And wow, yeah. And so I think that's one thing I want us to hold on to is if your spouse is having trouble asking for something, it is not because your spouse has a communication issue. chances are there is an environment issue. And the environment is cultivated by the both of you. So now it is, what are we doing that has allowed the space to become the kind of space where one of us is uncomfortable asking for a need? And that's a bigger thing to really sit down and address. So I think that's a part of it, is creating an environment, creating a space where asking is safe. And not only is asking safe, but whether the response is yes or no, the space is still safe enough. The space is still filled with love. The space is still filled with compassion. And the two of you are still occupying the space with the togetherness that allows for another ask.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. There were so many thoughts when you were. But no, I think you summarized it beautifully. Yeah.
Okay. All right, y'all. So be specific, be loving, be caring, be patient, be honorable, and set the space. And I think that's the healthiest few things that we can put forward in terms of how to ask, how to set an environment where either one of you can ask and really have a need be expressed. We gonna rock right there. All right, y'all. Since we talk about asking, ask us. What do you want to ask us? You know, I tell you at the end of each one of these, hit us down in those comments. Find us on the socials, find us on Instagram. If you've got questions you feel more comfortable asking them there, go over there, we'll find them, and we'll try to answer them there as well. At the end of the day, we want people talking in and about marriage, because the more we talk about it, the more we learn about it. The more we learn about it, the better we get at it. And the better we get at it, the more people are actually going to want to do it, and do it in a healthy way. That's our mission. Help us with the mission. Ask us some questions. Let us answer some of them. Like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, have watch parties, make marriages better. Do your thing. We're going to do our thing. Let's do our thing together. We'll see you at the next one.